Using the Power Book method, I stress the value, the ease, and the importance of using existing content to help you to lay the foundations, if not even build the majority of your book using existing content. And the beautiful thing about using existing content to help you to build out a book is that you have likely already published that content, have seen the results of the content, and know how people have responded. Now let's talk about the different ways that you can use content to help you to develop out a book. There are preferred forms of content that will work better for you creating the foundations for your book, especially when you're able to pass this kind of content that's already been vetted, already been edited, and developed out in your other streams, your other outlets, has proven effectiveness, has gotten engagement from people, and you can go, I know that this podcast did really well, and it helped me to explain this particular part of my business, this process, this whatever it is that you were sharing. And I got a lot of good feedback on it. That's a great piece of content that you would want to pull and you would want to give to me or whatever ghostwriter you're working with in order to help them to understand the nuances of your business and pick up on your voice, pick up on how you relay and communicate information. That's why I love working with podcasts, because I'm not only hearing how you are saying something as you are talking, whether it's your personal podcast or you were a guest on somebody's podcast, both of those can be very effective. But it's also you explaining something, outlining something. So let me give you 2 examples of using podcasts to create a book. One client came to me and they had about 24, 25 episodes of a podcast. And they were like, I don't know if this is enough. And in some cases that may not have been enough, but in her particular case, it was an exceptional amount of information because each podcast was about 40-ish minutes. And she had taken the time and had outlined each podcast. She was very thorough in her delivery in the podcast, and it was well orchestrated, each and every one. And they all built from episode 1 to episode 24, 25, wherever she was, they all built. And from episode 1 to episode 24, they all built in a sequence. So she was continually laying the foundations and explaining her process and giving examples. She had literally been writing, developing a book per se, right? A whole process like we would take somebody through in a book. She'd been doing that in her podcast and not even realizing what she was doing. Now that's somebody who really has a really structured focus and idea and how they want to explain things. But the reason she was able to do that is because in her business, she already had been in business for a few years before she decided to launch the podcast. And then she thinks about, what do I want the podcast to say? Well, I wanted to get people into my world, understand what I do so that they could become clients. So she was clear on how she served people already. And that when she created the podcast, it naturally fell into alignment with building that bridge to get people from where they were to where they wanted to be as clients. You see that? That's the same trajectory that we're looking to do with a book. And so your book is going to build the trajectory, getting them from where they are to where they want to be. They have a problem, you have a solution, let's get them there. That's what the book can help them to do. So if you have a podcast like what I've just described, whether it's that orchestrated and that structured or not, but if you have a podcast that you've already been creating your content for, a lot of that content, especially on those good episodes that you can point out and go, oh, I know episode 11 or episode 259 was really good, spoke to this particular item, and would make a great chapter or some material inside my book. So we can go through your material that way, find the essence that's going into your book. The other thing that we can do is if you've been a podcast guest. Now, in a lot of cases, usually as a podcast guest, you're being interviewed. Somebody's asking you a lot of questions. Well, think about what we're doing with the book. In their mind, when they pick up this book, they have questions. The reader has ideas and things going on in their mind, and they're hoping your book is going to be this answer for them. It's going to offer them some solution. Isn't that what you're doing as a podcast guest? You are being interviewed by somebody who has an audience that they believe that you can speak to, that you can be of service to. So they're usually asking you questions. Now, I had a client where she didn't have her own podcast, but she had 3 to 4 episodes where she had been a guest. Each episode that she'd been a guest on was like 50 minutes. So it was a good extensive amount of content that I was able to listen to. Yes, there were some repeat elements, but on the other hand, there were times where she'd been a guest a few times now and she had improved her delivery, improved how she was speaking about it, or the way that she was being interviewed was different in each scenario by the different people, the different personalities. So that came across differently. So I was able to take these particular episodes, listen to all of them, and find the elements that would work to help to clarify the different points that were going inside the book. So what you're looking for is you're looking for content that is explaining, that is sharing, that is educating people, that is giving the information, that is your golden nuggets that go into your book, that give the explanation, the clarity, the insights, the stories that go into your book. And as far as repurposing content goes, podcasts are ideal to turn into a book. The same thing that I would say that is equally ideal as a podcast would be video content, because video content also, we're getting a sense of your personality and how you speak, how you say things, the words that you're using, so that we can capture that for the book. But then we're also getting you explaining and covering the different elements that, however you do that. So if you have video content or you have podcasts, both of those would make excellent resources to be able to repurpose and add into the book. The other thing that we can look at is if you already have blogs or you have long, extensive emails that you've been writing. Those are usually good pieces that we can use as content to go into the book. So these would be my top tier recommendations. If you have these kind of assets already in your business and you're thinking about having a book, then you are already on first step of that pathway. Whether you realize it or not, you already have some really great assets that I can turn into a book for you. We would just sit down, we would have our strategy conversation, and we would make sure we had a direction for the book. We knew what we were going to focus on in the book, so that as I'm listening to these other pieces of content, I know what I'm looking for. Makes sense? And so I know which pieces I'm pulling and what I'm going to do, and then how I'm going to organize it to put together your entire book. That's the way that I work. That's what I can help you to understand as we go through a strategy session and how you pull this together into a book. Now, if you're like, I don't have any of that, I just have social posts I've been creating, or I have shorter emails maybe I've been sending out periodically, that might give you a foundation for you to start thinking through. That is secondary content. It's usually not as effective as the first ones I explained, and hopefully you can understand the difference there, but you can see the elements of what we are looking for. And if you're struggling and you're like, I don't have any of this, but I have been in business, I understand my deliverables, I understand who I'm serving, I have a clear offer in place, I'm ready for a book, I just don't have these other things in place, that's okay too, because another way that I've worked with clients is I help them to create the content directly by interviewing them, by asking them the questions. So essentially, instead of you being a guest on a podcast, we'll just jump on a video, we'll record that session so I can download the transcript, and I will ask you the questions, and I will be interviewing you and getting you to engage and getting you to answer the things. This is how I've been creating content for clients for years, because they'll come to me and they're like, I am no good at writing. I'm like, no need to write. I am really good at writing. I just need you to download your expertise. I just need you to share your wisdom with me by answering some questions. And do you mind if we do that on video? If you're uncomfortable on video, we can turn off the video and I can just capture the audio. But we get you talking so that I can hear it and I can turn that in to content. So already you can come with some content that's already been done and proven and tested in the market, or we can develop it as we go to be able to create your book using existing content to turn it into a book that is effectively connecting with your target audience. To start your brainstorming and even book a strategy session so that we can go through this together, visit workbooksthatwork.com. Have a fabulous day.